Is Patrik Laine going to play a game for the Columbus Blue Jackets beyond this season?
No, never. No, of course not.
I don't think so.
How?
So if you saw, he was benched, and Torts didn't want to call it a benching. And actually, I have to give Aaron Portzline credit because he's like, don't worry, in the press, he's going to love Patrik Laine. But what we've seen on the ice is Patrik Laine has come in, and his first 3 games, he scored 3 goals. And apparently he mouthed off to the assistant coach, who knows what he said. Mm-hmm. And
he just got there. He just got there.
And so here's the question. And Jarmo Kekalainen's got a really, and I saw a weird rumor on Twitter about this, and I want to get to it about Torts. Jarmo Kekalainen's got a choice to make here.
Yes.
At a certain point, you got to decide whether you want your team to be something more than hardworking. At some point, your team's got to be high skill. And there's no question, the Columbus Blue Jackets, their work ethic is unimpeachable. You cannot look at the Blue Jackets and say, yeah, they don't work hard. They work extremely hard, except for Pierre-Luc Dubois' last shift. And that's why I think it was so noticeable. It's so weird to see a Blue Jackets player just go, yeah, I'm going to go for a skate, and I'm going back to the bench now. And he never played for them again. Laine, I don't know what the dust-up really was about, and that's really sort of besides the point. Mm-hmm. Has been there for 4 or 5 games. He's done nothing but do what he is supposed to do, which is score bunches of goals. 3 games, 3 goals. Pretty great. And they bench him. This is a market that has a very difficult time, and Portsy mentioned it as well, with holding on to star power, because it has the reputation of, according to Aaron Portzline, it's a university town, not as cosmopolitan as a city like New York. Well, nobody is. And it's tough for stars to stay there. They have Patrik Laine in that he's a restricted free agent. But that's it.
That's the key.
Is this going to be a Jack Roslovich for Pierre-Luc Dubois trade?
Unless you trade Patrik Laine and get a big old bunch of stuff for him. Let me tell you, as the creator of trade trees, I am dying to find out, because this thing is shaping up to be a very long one. Actually, it's a continuation of a trade tree. I believe it is tied to, is it the Evander Kane trade tree? Can't remember. Anyway, I know it's one that Justin Hall is involved in. Anyway,
okay.
I feel like John Tortorella, and I mean this as a compliment, you can give him any piece of fruit, and he's going to squeeze the most juice out of it, out of almost any coach.
What if it's a pineapple and it's all prickly?
His hands are so... Jesse, his hands are so gruff and manly tough that he just goes right through it, right through all the prickles.
Oh, no.
The pineapple looks at John Tortorella and goes, oh, my God, that's so prickly. Right? You know what I'm saying? You know how pineapples talk? Like that French show? Anyway, so he just...
La nana, you mean?
Yeah, Télé-Français. What?
Yeah,
you don't know that?
Télé-Français.
No.
La nana.
Yeah. You grew up in Canada, you liar. You know that.
I don't know what that is.
You shut up.
Maybe that's only for 80s kids.
It was. It was a late 80s, early 90s show. Jesse's right. He's right. Yeah.
I was
Jesse always talks like we're friggin' Back to the Future and we're several decades apart. We are like 3 or 4 years apart.
You guys are in your mid-30s. Like, I don't know what that is.
I am not Christopher Lloyd. How dare you? Anyway,
I am not in my mid-30s. Mid-30s start at 34. Thank you very much.
I don't know how mid-30s feel. So
wow,
I'm here, still in my 20s, kicking it.
Neither do I, you big jerk. Anyway, Steve, what were you saying?
John Tortorella will take any fruit, and squeeze the most juice out of it. And for a while, you got a big cup of juice. And then after a certain amount of time, all you got is the peel. Now, the Blue Jackets aren't there. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they made the playoffs this year.
They're sitting in 4th in the division.
Yeah, like they're not a bad team. Jarmo Kekalainen has not made a bad team, even with the losses. And I think part of the reason that they're as good as they are is John Tortorella. But one thing we've talked about in the past is this guy's got a shelf life. Vancouver is the weird one. That's everyone gets a one-off. That was the weird one. But he had a formula that worked really well in Tampa, and they won. Then he obviously leaves because coaches get hired to get fired. And he had a formula that worked really well in New York, and they got close, and then he gets fired.
I forgot about New York.
Right? Mm-hmm. Then it was a match made in heaven. Then Vancouver happens. Whoops, that's the one-off. And the Blue Jackets just feels like he's not quite at the end of the road there, but he's close. You know what I mean? I don't see this lasting beyond this year. I could see it lasting the rest of this year, but I think Tortorella is going to go somewhere else probably. He doesn't have to worry about completely rehabilitating his image yet. Dubois still hasn't really talked about why he asked out, but he does not have to do the rehabilitation job at the moment that he had to do after going from the Canucks to the Blue Jackets. So I think at some point he's going to be done his Columbus journey and he's going to go somewhere else and they'll have a bit of success for a while and XYZ. But he's got a shelf life and it just feels like I don't know that he can squeeze more out of this roster than he is.
Question for you, right, Stephen and Adam. Do you think that if Columbus wants to re-sign Laine this summer, they have to fire Tortorella before that?
I think that's extreme.
Okay.
I think, well, here's where the conspiracy theory comes in all along those lines, Jesse. Torts' contract is up this year. Mm-hmm. And there are people suggesting online that he's trying to be like, nah, let me go. There were some online suggestions of maybe he doesn't want to be the coach anymore.
He wants to win too much for that. You know?
He wants to win hard.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, and John Tortorella must know this, the Columbus Blue Jackets are not going to win if Patrik Laine is not going to score a bunch of goals for them. They don't have a hope in hell. And it doesn't mean that they won't get into the playoffs. They're not going to win, though. That's the point. The point is to win. And it was interesting because some reporters in Toronto, and I hate to make it all about the Leafs, but somebody did ask Sheldon Keefe, what are your thoughts on benching? It's been a conversation piece this year for a couple of teams. And he said, it's a double-edged sword because on one end, you are sending a message to a player and the rest of the bench. But the other end is you're making the rest of your players work harder and you are cutting yourself.
Yeah. That's what
is there no other way to deal with Patrik Laine 5 games in than to sit him?
You do it after the game.
No other way?
After the game, I think is the way to do it. And that's the way Keefe has handled it, is if he's been displeased with a player's performance, guess what? You're not playing the next game. Mm-hmm. Or he'll issue the challenge. Hey, you were trash last game. I'm putting you in. But if you're trash this game, I'm going to sit you for 2. Something along those lines. I wouldn't be surprised if that's happened to a player or two. But you're right. You're completely putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Someone has to double shift. Like on the most basic level, you're short a man.
And we saw how completely out of sorts the Leafs were in that third game against Vancouver when they went 11-7 and then went committee on the second line. Yeah. You committee on the fourth. What do you – second? Okay.
Yeah.
Now imagine doing that to yourself – but there's no seventh defenseman. There's no replacement. There's no. Right. I don't know. It doesn't.
And you sign yourself up for that just because you're upset.
No, and people will say, "Well, it's worked before, or he's not the first coach to do it." No, we're not going through the history of benching. We're talking about does it make any sense? And I personally don't think it does. I think there are situations where it could work, of course, but there are other options. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to get rides to school from my friend's mom who was afraid to turn left. Mm-hmm. She always got us to school, took forever, wasn't the best way to get to school. Let me tell you, that is a real thing. That happened.
I had a great aunt who was the same way. And she used to have to drive like 3-4 hours to come to family get-togethers. And she would plan the route out on a paper map so she wouldn't have to take a left hand the entire time.
You should not have a license.
Now, it would take me 3 hours. It would take her 4.5. And she did it because she refused to take a left-hand turn.
She did it.
Go all the way around the town, turn right back into it.
But she got there, am I right? What, you never had an aunt that took 4.5 hours for a 3-hour drive? It's what you sound like when you defend benching. Stop it.
Right. It's a little ridiculous. Yeah. So, I mean, and Jack, by the way, Jack Roslovic, 7 points in 7 games. Not bad. Not bad at all.
And
Oh,
an
wow.
OT winner.
Patrick,
Sexy OT winner.
yeah, I'm sure he's thrilled to be back home. There's a guy that'll stick around. But Patrik Laine has Patrik Laine skill. There's no doubt about it. He's got 4 games. He scored 3 goals. That's a guy you need in the lineup. And that's a guy you need playing. Because I'm looking at the top of the lineup here, and we've got Bjorkstrand, Texier, Foligno, Roslovic, Cam Atkinson, right? The highest amount of points by any Columbus Blue Jacket right now is Oliver Bjorkstrand, who has 11 points in 14 games.
That's good.
But Steve, there's not a single player scoring at a point per game clip there. This is a team that doesn't score a lot. You got a guy that scores a lot. You got to find a different way to deal with him. So I'm sure Jarmo and John had a conversation after that.